Okay, so let's try a little exercise. This is kinda, I guess, what Carlos Fuente gave us in that workshop that I mentioned. Obviously, it wasn't 3D; it was 2D. But the idea here is the same. We are going to be using some kind of a shape. In my case, I will be using just a box, but it can be anything, right? Just pick whatever you want. It can be literally anything you want, right? Whatever the shape you choose to use. And so if I hit V, I can check the silhouette, right? And this is going to be just the outline, right? So whatever the shape you prefer. I personally, I'm going to, well, now that I look at this, I might even go with that. But let's just, for the sake of kind of simplicity, I suppose, or maybe even the complexity, because this is a cube, and it's probably going to be just a little bit difficult to make it look like a cube with all this detail on. But anyway, pick a shape, pick anything you want, and I'm going to provide the alphas that I've used here as well. There is no need to use the alphas. I just wanted to do two things at the same time. First of all, I wanted to just show what I do when I need to fix something, right? If it's like a common thing that I get to review someone else's work, right? I get their sculpts, and I basically clean things up in a way and make it a little bit more attractive. And at the same time, I want to do more organic shapes in here. Perhaps that's not a good way of saying what I want. It is organic as is, right? But I want to intensify things, and this goes back to that chapter when I was talking about setting a intention, right? Some kind of intention to make. To feel something with detail, right? To feel something with order, because at the moment, even though this is not chaos, but it's really difficult to make something out of this, right? I can obviously, the first thing I can do is just follow the lines in here, right? And then this way I can just make things a little bit cleaner. But I would like to exercise my imagination, right? I want to see something in here, and perhaps by seeing something within those shapes, I can create something new. So for example, here, this might be a head, right? This might be a shoulder, this might be an arm, right, going somewhere there. So I can see a person in here. So I will try to use that throughout the model. And for the techniques and for the tools, I will be using very standard set of tools. The first one is going to be standard brush, the other one is going to be clay brush, the third, probably less so, will be clay buildup, and of course damn standard, right, to cut things this way. And another tool, not necessarily a brush, but the one that I will use to check on how things are holding, it's going to be the fast sketch material, right? So this way I can not visualize, but this way I can see where the noise is, right? Especially if we turn the angle this way, right? Or if we turn the object this way, we can see just how much noise there is on the surface, right? All of this stuff we'll need to clean it up, right? I will need to clean it up. This is going to be my experiment, my test. Right, so I will not do any narration in here because it's somewhat pointless, right? I will be, in some sense, if I do narrate, I will be just kind of explaining what I see, and that's just strange, right? Because you might be seeing something completely different, and I don't think there is any point of me doing any narration here. So instead, I will just focus on the sculpting, and this is the exercise that I would encourage you to try for yourself as well. And don't rush with this. Take your time, right? If you want to do it in a couple of sessions, do it in a couple of sessions. The key here, or I guess the point here, is not to make something fast. The point here is to make something organic looking in shape, right? And and make it clean, make it somewhat elegant. That's the idea. And in terms of the detail, go as far as you want. If you want to use some alphas, do that, right? But again, just treat it the way you would treat like a final, the most polished piece of flesh that you can make, right? That's the goal, that's the idea. It's just to flex those muscles, right? To be able to execute things by just creating shapes, right? By either cutting them inwards or adding them to on top, right? And then just smoothing things out, and in the end we should get a blobby, fleshy looking surface, and that will definitely help with the muscle memory, definitely help with just an overall memory of how to execute fleshy looking bits. Because if we are character artists, that's kind of one of the main things, right? Anatomy, be it a creature sculpt, be it just a person or just a human sculpt, doesn't really matter. Even if it's something like clothing, right? It's all about the sculpting. It's all about the forms, really, and then the way we execute the forms and the cleanliness of those forms and how they connect and how they come into some kind of harmony. So with that said, I'm going to start on the process, and if there is something later that I would like to mention, I will do that, right? I will just do some kind of commentary on that. If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description. So here the technique, I guess, it's not even technique, but the thing that I've done here was me trying to break away from the repetition that I just realized that I was falling into, right? So this particular element in here was becoming just a little bit too predictable. There are too many spherical elements in here, right? So everything is just becoming too stale, too, like I said, predictable. And so to refresh myself, to refresh my mind just a little bit, I've decided to use a cloth brush, and sometimes, well, depending on the asset, obviously, but sometimes I do use this brush, well, any of the clothing brush. I don't even know which one does what, but in this case I was using, I think, cloth nudge, right? And so I just found a place where the detail was interesting looking, right? So it's almost like a separation of between this and whatever is going to be happening in here, right? So this is mimicking clothing, but it can be skin, right? Just a baggy looking skin, and it's at this point it's just a low poly. It's going to be better looking, hopefully, in the end. But that's the only, I guess, reason why I did that. It's just that I realize that that I was falling into a box, right? That I don't necessarily like doing. I don't like finding myself in boxes, right? So I just wanted to do something to get away from that. Another thing to try and do if you find yourself in a similar situation, if you're working on this asset. And another thing I should also mention that right before I started sculpting, I've made I've used ZRemesher, right, on the original cube, because it wasn't that I wanted to clean things up, even though it definitely helped with that. What I wanted to do is I wanted to have some subdivision levels, and the original cube for some reason didn't have any of the subdivision levels. And the reason why I wanted this kind of structure is because if we are making huge differences in shapes, right? If we are constructing bigger detail, so to speak, and I'm using all kinds of tools in here, if I don't like it, or if I want to modify something, I don't want to spend too much time cleaning things up, right? And if it was, let's say, this density, right, cleaning this the surface, just this detail would have taken me too much time. So I do prefer to work on models that do have subdivision levels, right? In this case, this is the reason why I prefer to work on that. So if you find this not an issue at all, you can use Dynamesh, right? Dynamesh would be perfect for this because it just doesn't really consider the underlying geometry, right? And everything is more or less the same, equal in the way it's behaving under brush. So that would be another good thing. But I perhaps I will switch to Dynamesh a bit later when I'm done with the main forms, quote unquote. But the other thing that can be used here is some kind of an alpha, right? It doesn't have to be anything organic. It doesn't have to be a tree or anything like that. It can be literally a picture of something, right? A picture of a building. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you use that tool to create something that I've just created here, right? To kind of break away from some kind of pattern that you might find yourself falling into when things become just a little bit too predictable, a little bit too boring, right? And so this way we can always come and just using the alpha, just destroy the some of the surface this way, right? And all of a sudden we can maintaining the kind of intention, right, of making things organic looking. We now have just a little bit variation into in a sense that where we can put that those forms into, right? So for example here it just it wouldn't make sense to position something like that into here, right? Because the underlying surface dictates something a little bit different, right? I mean, I can obviously do that. I can smooth things out and put it here, but because I have this new detail underneath, I can perhaps do something else, right? I can just visualize some other forms within the constraints, or I guess the kind of the detail that I do have here, right? So those are different techniques, and maybe the last one to use is just come in here and with a clay brush or something, it'll just destroy the surface altogether, right? So it doesn't, at least the surface itself is not so it's not so as well predictable as everything else, right? Because after spending some time on a square, so to speak, if I come in here, perhaps my mind, and this could be just my mind, right, it would want to replicate something familiar which was done in here, right? So if I destroy it this way, I can do something else in this region, right? So those are the tools. They are not kind of production tools, obviously, right? This is not the point. When we're not doing anything for production, we're just doing something to learn, to get the necessary muscles and the necessary mindset to familiarize and kind of lock itself when it comes to lock itself in the in the realm of, I guess, organic sculpting. Here I'm using a alpha. This is a free alpha from textures.com. I think it's it doesn't say the name, but it's one of those not lava, but some kind of soil, some kind of ground alpha that I use, that I've been using quite often, surprisingly, because it just because I'm dealing with well, professionally for the time being. I'm working on creatures and organic acids and things like that. So this is just comes in real handy, right? So this is what I'm going to use it for. Here, the reason why I wanted to use it is because the surface that I do see here, right in front of the, well, right in front of us, it looks to me like cloth, right? And there is a reason for that, because we've used a cloth brush here, and then I've made those smaller wrinkles in here, and now the flow of the original alpha is doing that. So it's getting too much, I think, into again becoming stale, right? There's something about it that just feels too predictable, and I do want to change that just a bit. But before I apply the alpha, I'm going to store a morph target, right? So this way, when I apply the alpha, and I need to just have a look at what it does, and I think I will go with that. So the reason why I've stored the morph target is because by applying the alpha, I'm destroying quite a bit of detail that I've placed in here, right? And just it becomes too noisy. So next thing to do is to select the morph brush and just eliminate this detail from the from areas where I don't want the alpha to affect the work that was previously done. Right, so this way this is becoming to look weird, right? So let's see if we can get out of this one. So let's analyze a little bit what we've just done here, and yeah, it's quite different, right? This is I think this is the section that I've started with, then gradually moved on to, I think, this one, right? And then things got real different somewhere here, but that's fine, that's okay. Let's just see what this looks like when it's just pure form, right? And I'm gonna subdivide this one more time so we get rid of this some of this noise. So yeah, at this point we can just continue doing that, right? And with this shader, with this material, I can intensify some things, and this goes back to that chapter where I mentioned that this almost feels like drawing, right? Because when I make a cut, it feels like I'm just making a stroke with a pencil, which is really cool, right? So now I have a little bit more detail as well, that now that I subdivided this mesh, so I can come in here and add more precision. So here, this is some skin fold or some clothing lying on top of something that is pushing it kind of up, right? So I can do some of that. Now those ridges in here, they look more pronounced, I suppose, and they look more like bony structure, something perhaps that we would see on a skull, not necessarily in that shape, but just the kind of nature of it, right? So I can intensify some of that as well. And just do that all over the place, just enhancing some of the elements, adding more detail where I think the detail can improve the look, right? I mean, we could have started from this mesh, sorry, not mesh, but from this with this material from the get-go. We could have started just right away, but I wanted to do a little bit more traditional sculpting at first, and now that I'm 1 hour into sculpting, I definitely feel like my brain is just trying to grasp something that is familiar and tries to repeat it, right? And I don't like that, so I'm gonna to either take a break, or we can just switch the material. That's another just a simple technique, simple way of refreshing the eyes, refreshing the mind, because we do see things in a very different, literally and metaphorically, the different light, right? So all the shadow information just went away, and what we see is just transition of things, transition of forms. Some of those forms look better than the others, which is why we need to just refresh a little bit, take a break, so when we get back, we can spot those things and improve. Right, and as we step up, as we go forward with this process, first starting with just something simple, right? Some kind of shape. This is, by the way, this is a guy, right? This is, perhaps you've spotted this as well, and this is why I said that I was getting too much into some kind of predictability. So this would be the back of the head, this is the shoulder, this is the arm lifted, this is another arm doing some crazy thing, and this is the butt, right? So this is the cheekbones, his butt cheeks, right? This is the back, this is the spine. So it was just a bit too much. It was looking just too predictable, like I said. So I've decided to use a cloth brush to do something about my head, right? To do something to get away from making seated people on this mesh. But as we make those things, those forms, those primary forms, right? Those bigger ones, the ones that that create the silhouette and just the feel of this kind of fleshy, blobby surface. We can proceed with details, and details can be anything. If I go back to the Carlos Huente class, he would use some alphas as well in Photoshop, and he was presenting this technique or this workflow in Photoshop. He would just select a brush with a random, somewhat random alpha, right, and he would stamp it on the thing that he was working on. It's just like I've did here, right? I've done here at some point. So he would just choose whatever he wants, right? Literally just something random. So this, for example, would be a really interesting effect, and this is one of the default brush alphas in ZBrush. So once we get a little bit too we get far into the process and the forms are somewhat established, we can go into details, and that would be the same kind of process without rushing anything, without thinking that this detail is going to be it, right? That if we put it somewhere here like that this is done. This detail should be treated the same way as everything else that we see here. It should be polished, right? And it should be used as some kind of a guide to start thinking about the surface in a slightly different way, right? So instead of just having those kind of dots in here randomly, we can start connecting them with some bridges, right? So just literally do something here, cut, connect them, whatever. Do use another alpha in here, just something that changes the way we think in some way, but at the same time just creates a challenge for us to blend all of that into the organic nature of the surface. So we would just continue doing that until we're satisfied with everything, until there is no real point in going forward, right? That the surface is just so detailed and so clean that there's just no need to do anything else. So I would take a break and probably just show what the final result was, but everything that I will do is the same as I've done here, right? Literally the same kind of processes everywhere. So this is the result. At this point I'm in Dynamesh because I've done, well, plenty of work here. I mean, this is a cube. It means that there are just too many sides for me to work on, right? If I want to keep everything unique, and I just don't want to spend too much time here, so I've worked on, like, I don't know, three and a half sides, right? This one being the most complex one. So with all the forms done, I've dynameshed everything, and the mesh is super dense now, which is good because now I can, if I wanted to, right, I can come in here and switch to a different material perhaps, and start just refining things, start to clean things up, and perhaps add details like those ones, right? Almost like some skin folds, something of this nature. And you can push this as far as you want, just maintaining the somewhat clean look, somewhat organic look, right? Because the point of the exercise is not to make details. The point of the exercise is to be able to push the skill in our organic sculpting, right? So some kind of tightness of this nature, I would do this as a next stage, and things like those ones, for example, this hole looking things, I would definitely refine those as well, put some more detail in here if I wanted to, some kind of a ridge, maybe there's almost like a bone structure in here, right? Some smaller details like that. And if I don't stop, I will just continue working on this indefinitely. Right. So yeah, this is the result. So everything was done in the same way, right? So just a couple of brushes, and with the fast sketch, it's very easy to just analyze, to see what is working, right? Like what's the final result, what looks good, what doesn't look good. And the most important thing is just to take away what makes a surface to look organic, what make it look fleshy. And well, the things that make it look fleshy is definitely one of them, is definitely cleanliness. Another thing is the line work, right? They just the kind of flow and the fluidity of things, that there are no such thing as kind of breakups and just random shapes, right? Even here somewhat where I wanted to implement something geometrical, right? I just made those sharper lines or sharper corners. Even here it's not exactly inorganic looking, right? There's definitely flesh. We can definitely read some flesh in here, and we can even make a person in here, right? The face, the shoulder, the butt, the other shoulder, the back. So that's the end result. And if we want, we can always go back to our favorite Carlos Huente and just examine, maybe just to compare, because to me this is the pinnacle of form, right? So for treating form as something organic, and just by perhaps looking at some of what he has done and going back to what we have done, we can spot some similarities. And the similarities are those two things that I've mentioned. It's the cleanliness and just the overall kind of fluidity of things, the kind of tightness of things, right? So that's the exercise. It's quite fun, a bit time consuming, but it definitely a useful one. I would argue that if you want to learn, or not learn, but not necessarily learn, but if you want to improve your organic skill, organic sculpting skill set, right? Definitely give it a try. Definitely give this exercise a go.